How often do you spend time taking stock of the things that the people around you are good at? Family, friends, coworkers, acquaintances, paying attention to the qualities that they put forth that are comforting or pleasing or put off an air of soulfulness. How often do you do that for yourself? How often do you spend time thinking about how what you do naturally as a human being is a value in the world around you or to the people around you? I am Tavish Cardiff. It is Resource Week at our Raw Material, and the Pillar of Resource is our final spiritual week in the practice. It opens us up to gifts, and it opens us up to the spaces that we a lot of times take for granted. So, like I said in the opening question, how often do you give yourself a breath and some acceptance around the compliments that you receive from other people? If someone tells you you have a beautiful smile, or your eyes are engaging, or there's some quality that you just bring easily and naturally that people appreciate, that is what I'm talking about. Those are resources. And when that type of energy gets reflected back to a person who needs something to pick them up, those resources are just naturally available. We exude the thing that we feel. And I know that the more intention that we put towards our being a resource, being our own resource ability in the world, the more we walk in with people appreciating it and complimenting it. Every one of us is a healing resource of some type. It's just figuring out where we fit and what our niche is and what actually feels good as a spiritual healing exchange. And a lot of times it's hard to figure out what feels good because we haven't gotten the chance to really try to see what is valuable to us. Every one of us has an inherent, innate ability to affect others. How we use that and how much we recognize and acknowledge it is a whole different story. And every one of us is different depending on what our emotional makeup is at the time. You know, we're coming off of intention week, so all of the things that we want and stir up, and then, you know, what resources do those things meet? Where do we find the resources for the intentions that we want? And what we do find, if we're looking at the connection between these things, is that they line up the way that they organically work if we step back and just watch them connect to the things that we're really truly passionate about. So my deepest intentions are the things that are going to lead me into people, places, things that support me meeting those types of intentions. We're all connected. We all have the ability to heal ourselves and each other, and we have the ability to offer every situation we walk into, even at the tiniest level, some calm or some spiritual connection, or just a layer of heart energy that sits on and around everything. When we're around people who need peace or need a little help just getting themselves together, getting their heart and mind to work from the same place, and you know, that seems like an easy thing to do, but really those thoughts ping pong off of each other a lot, and we can't find a consensus. So jumping from one to the other makes us feel like we aren't taking care of ourselves. And when things don't feel solid, we don't feel like we have the resources to, you know, either keep ourselves together or keep our intentions on track or to follow through with the things that we want. There's sometimes a breakdown when we feel alone. So remembering that awareness of connection, even when we can't feel it presently, or even when it isn't showing up directly in our lives, going inside and connecting to that through breath, that is a space where we will always find our inner resource, where we will always find a space to self-comfort. And you know, as our world has it, that comfort a lot of times is only available within the self, and we don't give ourselves the time, or the universe doesn't afford us the time to get in touch with it. So that spiritual resource is a very personal space. I don't want to describe what it looks like to you or what it feels like, because I can't know what that expression is for you. What I know is that when you have a connection to the awareness that you're part of something bigger, even, scientifically, even if you don't want to call it God, even if you don't want to call it a higher anything, I don't mind that at all. I don't mind any words that you want to call it. I use connection because it's the most universal word that I can come up with that describes we are our individuated, personal self. I'm Tavish, but each one of us is also part of a larger humanity, and that humanity is part of a larger living organisms, and all together we are one energy that creates all these different pieces, and we each have a way that we fit, and it doesn't always look that way because we are seeing everything through this filter, through this brain. And when we open that up to spirit in some way, open that up to connection, open that up to being part of God, and just, if you trigger off the words, ask yourself why, and then come back to just a feeling in your heart that you aren't alone. That's really all I'm trying to name right here, or give the broadest name possible to. That spiritual resource of connection. When you feel it at your heart and can bring it down, bring it further, like under your belly button to the space, right under there, when you feel both of those spaces open, that forces us into an opening of breath, and that forces breath to move a little more freely, not just through our lungs, but through our entire body, opening up the ability to feel more connected as a larger energetic entity. These spiritual resources get distorted by the complications or trappings of religion and or science. And I would say they both have their equal responsibility to limiting what we believe is possible. So it really comes down to our individual belief system and what each of our lives has brought us in terms of what we personally believe. Our own doctrine, or what we think is real in the world, comes from what we have experienced in the world. And no one else can say what your experience has been. And every attempt we make to characterize another person, if it's not done with curiosity and love and wonder, if it's done with some sort of couching of knowledge, you understand how they work, you're missing the point. And that point comes from taking all of these types of different information available to us and coming up with a conclusion that springs forth directly from our own being. Our raw material isn't here asking you to change any of your beliefs. It's just asking you to look at them, examine them, see where you can push them out a little bit. Give yourself a little more breathing room, find a little less fear, a little more faith in something, whatever it is that works for you. And lean into that, because number one, it feels good. And number two, you will find that life just feels better, works better. Your own body works better when you are working from a space of feeling or wanting to feel spiritually connected in some way to something. The practice guidance for this week is on holding space. And what I mean by that is giving room to breathe. So whether it's self-judgment, backing up and breathing and watching the situation, observing yourself and your own reactions and seeing if there's anywhere to tweak them, anywhere to give yourself a little more room beyond the judgment that we often, run into when we run up against our triggers. And then in holding space for others is stopping when we start to get bothered by something someone else does, or even when we don't understand them, and just listening, watching how our body's reacting, watching how their body's reacting, and just kind of trying to see from that body language perspective what where the fear is and where there's triggered, bothered energy, so that you can breathe around that and find the space to challenge the belief system a little bit, push it out, let go of a little bit of fear and see if you can give yourself just a little more room to breathe. physically breathe and energetically breathe. There's a lot of space to work creatively in the spiritual connection, in the spiritual realm. Once you get in there and start playing with your imagination, you will start to see that, it's infinitely open for your creative mind to go to healing whatever it is that you want to heal. This is the 10th pillar, resources, and this is all of the help that the universe has available to us, but we don't really know how to access it. Think of it as like there's tons of grants out there. If you just knew how to ask for them, then, potentially there's a lot of money in your pocket to go learn whatever you want to learn. So think of the resource pillar as the grant bank. Go play around and ask for what you want. Imagine what you want. And if your proposals are good, you will start to see the energetic returns coming back with the resources and the things you need to get things done. This week, as we come off of Thanksgiving, give thanks and grace to our space that we can allow for ourselves and others. I look forward to seeing you next week for Aligning with Intention as we begin to wrap up this session of our raw material.